This is the sales hallway. The sales hallway, again, is just a conversation, the sales process that you engage in with your prospect, with your future customers. This is you, and these are your customers. Now, everything starts out very happy and lovely, and everybody's, having a great time, kumbaya, so everybody's smiling. As you go through the sales process, your prospect is going to get information from you, as much information as they can, especially information about the price. When they get information about the price, they start looking like this. They can't believe it, right? Because things always cost more than people expect. Especially if you're a premium company, your prices may be 10, 20, 30, 40% higher than the other companies in your industry. So what happens when they start having this reaction? They want to get out of the hallway. And one of the most common ways is to sneak out of the price door. So they get the information, the price, and instead of going through this door and buying, they sneak out this door and try to shortcut the entire sales process. So what I want to talk to you today is about how to permanently close the price door to seal off this escape route before your prospect even has a chance to try to sneak out of it. Now, to truly understand the process I'm going to use, you have to understand the principle of consistency. The principle of consistency is based on a fundamental premise that public declarations dictate future actions. By the way, a lot of this research is based on the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini down at, I believe, Arizona State University. He's done a lot of work on consistency principles, influence principles, written a couple of great books. I suggest to check it out. But one of those principles he talks about is the consistency principle. Now, as you may know, in my book, The Power of Consistency, I talk about the concept that private declarations dictate future actions. That's why it's so important to tell yourself every day all the amazing things you're going to accomplish. But consistency principle also stands for the proposition that public declarations dictate future actions. In other words, if I tell you I'm going to do something, if it comes out of my mouth, I become more likely to do that than I otherwise would have been. I want you to stop and think about this. Now what you know about that research. Imagine as I'm going down through this process, I'm going to have an honest, transparent, open conversation with my prospect about price. I'm not going to wait for them to bring up the price. I'm going to bring up the price. So somewhere during my presentation, I'll say something like this. Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, I'm sure it's very important to you that when you're making a purchase like this or buying these services, that you get a fair price. Is that fair to say? And they're going to say, yes, of course. We want to get a great price. Then what you do is you bring out some trade magazine, some industry expert article that shows that price is not the most important. And it's very easy to do. You're going to find one of them who's from a legitimate, trusted source in that industry, some expert in that industry, that lists the things to consider when making a purchase of that product or service. And price is never number one. So when your prospect says, yes, we're thinking, we want to get a good price, just say something like this. Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, what I'd like to do is to share some expert information from some industry authorities that talks about the things you should consider when buying this product or service. And then you review that article with them. And when you get down to price, which is going to be 4th, 5th, 6th, or 8th on the list, you say, now you can see here, Mr. Prospect, that this article says that price is only the 6th most important factor. Quality of service, quality of distribution, whatever. These things are more important than a cheap price. Let me ask you this, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect. Would you agree with ABC industry expert that there are other factors to consider that are as important, perhaps even more important than a cheap price? They're looking straight at the article, so what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, yeah, these other factors are just important. Again, you're not saying this. It's an industry expert. All you're asking them is if they agree with that industry expert. When they agree with that industry article, with that expert, that price is not the most important factor, what's happened is that you have just closed the price door. But if they should bring up price at the end, after you've had that discussion, all you have to do is leverage the principal consistency by using the 3 most powerful words in sales. Earlier, you said. Here's what I mean by that. I had the conversation up here where they agree with me and the industry expert that price is not the most important. An hour later, I ask for the order. Mr. Prospect, will you trust me with this recommendation? And the prospect says, oh, I trust you. You sound like a great company. But man, you're $1,000 higher than the other guy, right? Now I can use those 3 powerful words. Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, earlier you said that you agreed with ABC industry expert that price was not the most important factor, that there were some other factors more important to you. Has that changed in our time together? And when you bring out the inconsistency, that here they said price was not the most important, now they're talking about price, they are going to feel cognitive dissonance. They're going to feel that anxiety that comes from saying one thing and then doing something else. They said here price wasn't the most important. Now they're saying they want a discount. So now their actions are not in alignment with their words and they feel dissonance. So when you ask them, has anything changed in our time together? They're going to feel anxiety. When people feel anxiety, it's not uncommon, they start just talking. They'll start saying, well, no, nothing's changed, but man, it's just a lot of money and we're going on vacation tomorrow and I got to talk to my brother-in-law and I got to talk to my priest and we got to sleep on it, pray about it, eat about it, right? They come up with all these lame excuses and all that is nervous energy because you just held them accountable to their public declarations that they made an hour ago. So when they get all of that nervous energy out and they stop talking, all you have to do is to nod your head and say, no, I understand. But with your permission, what do you say we start the paperwork? And you just ask for the order again. And when you ask for the order, when they feel this anxiety, it's like you're throwing them a life preserver, right? Because when they say yes to you, now all of a sudden their actions are in alignment with their words and they feel back in a state of resonance. They don't feel the anxiety. They don't have the dissonance. They're back into a state of resonance because now their actions of purchasing from you are consistent with what they told you earlier about price.